Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. We are excited because the Fantasy Fullback Dive is going to pave your way to fantasy glory eventually. Not for a while, but eventually. We're giving you a leg up here. We're going to be your lead blocker starting now, but going all season. So you're welcome in advance. We've got an awesome episode here. Combine Coachspeak. I mean, we've had the combine going on, and I mean, of course, like, you know, the guys are running, they're jumping, they're getting their hands measured, they're getting their they're getting their bodies measured. You know, the Teddy Bridgewaters of the world are probably dropping their drawers and getting stuff measured as well. There's a lot of measuring going on, but anyway, there's been some great stuff at the combines we're going to talk about. There's obviously some breaking news, Nick Foles variety, Kyler Murray, of course. I mean, there's some combine stuff about him too. Tons and tons to say about some soon-to-be former Steelers that we'll get to possibly later. But the Combine Coachspeak we're looking forward to. We got a lot of risers, a lot of fallers, a lot of significant stuff worth putting in your pipe and smoking here in early March of 2019. Wolf, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, Nat. As you mentioned, the Combine Coachspeak stuff is going to be huge. So many people get distracted. Not distracted. I mean, it is important watching these guys run around. DK Metcalf putting on an absolute clinic. What a freak animal this guy is. But what gets lost is a lot of these coaches finally get, you know, these new coaches, Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay and Matt LaFleur and the Packers. It's the first time they really come out and speak to the media about their teams and what they're going to do. And, you know, it's Coachspeak. We call it Coachspeak for a reason. You never want to go all in on what people are saying, but they also will hint at some usage trends, different things. So that often gets kind of swept under the radar as everyone's looking at how fast this guy ran and whatnot. To me, and especially fantasy football wise, the more important nuggets come in these transcripts. So our good buddy Hannibal hooked us up. We got access to all the transcripts of the GMs, the coaches. I sifted through, I think, 40 interviews, put together like a 28-page document of all the meaningful quotes, and then tapered that down to like about 10 pages for tonight. But man, we got a ton of loaded information to break down and cover. So I'm stoked about it. The juices are flowing. It's all right. It's March. The season's going to be here before we know it. Although Sundays have been pretty hopeless, I will say that there's like bowlings on TV or like
I mean NBA is not even bringing it yet, right? I mean, I get pretty excited, a little bit now, a little bit after now for the NBA close of the season, but man, Sundays are rough.
Yeah, what do your Sundays look like? What's the dad Sunday look like nowadays?
Oh, well, actually a quite nice little Sunday. Trip to Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean we usually take a family trip to the grocery store.
Thrilling.
We've been doing a ton of 4-person. I mean, everyone in my family, Mario Kart.
Oh, okay, nice.
Pretty nasty. I mean, like it gets pretty heated.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter and my wife are right now just about even. My wife was substantially better for a while, but my daughter's gaining ground quickly. So the rivalry used to be me and my wife, which was a pretty one-sided rivalry, but now my daughter's nipping at her heels. And
is this like the original like N64 one, or is this?
No, this is Nintendo Switch, man.
This advanced stuff here.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And my son, we have a controller for him, and he doesn't do much except just kind of like steer like into the walls. But he makes every race take a couple minutes longer than it should. So that's perfect. What Dad Sunday is, which is actually pretty fun. Today, it's Monday. It snowed. We went outside. We did a lot of wholesome family walk in the woods and stuff like that. But I'm exhausted, man, because the kids had a snow day. So this is my break from reality, man. So thank you for doing that for me. I got to ask you something.
Love it. Yeah, please.
What the hell is that big disc that's like taking up half of your screen?
This is if you can move the video here. It's like my new setup here. I got like the
your
mic,
spit guard. Huh?
Yeah, my spit guard. I'm professional here. We're really stepping up our equipment here. But Maddie Hopkins was telling me that the K and the P sounds were a little too harsh.
Hey, man. Yeah. That's true. You've been popping your peas. That's just like the guard they put in front of the salad bar so you don't sneeze in it. So
absolutely, yeah.
Nicely done.
And I've been up in Portland, so with the P, Maine, the last couple Sundays with no football going on. I love that city, man. Once we debut the Roto Street Eats, we're gonna have to go hit Portland, Maine sometime because that place is ridiculous.
Let me know, man. Let me know.
Poutine at Duck Fat. I mean, have you ever drank mead before? Just a random question before we get into the good stuff. But mead, yeah, I'm all about mead nowadays. It's like 15% alcohol. Tastes like apple juice.
I mean, I could see myself like having a mead bender.
Oh, I got home from Portland with like 6 bottles of mead, and me and my roommate drank like all 6 in one night. Both of us completely blacked. It was a nice way to welcome in. I turned 30, by the way.
Yeah, I'm aware. I was going to say that. How's that treating you?
And I feel older by the second. My back's starting to hurt. My knees are
30,
It's awful.
or as the Romans would have called it, triple X.
Triple X, baby.
That's right.
That's
anyway,
way more badass than 30. I like that a lot more.
Oh, yeah, seriously. This is the year you can call yourself that. You get one of those years.
Perfect.
Anyway, before we get into things, we do want to, kind of pump two of the things we got coming up, promo a couple things. We got the market report coming up. I'm going to kick that to you and let you talk about it. But we got the market report. We also got a great standalone podcast The Wolf did without the truth, but it's still pretty awesome. You got to check it out. Basically, he did an air raid attack podcast with Drew Hollingshead, and they're specifically talking about a lot of the Kyle Kingsbury stuff like that. I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him do it. So why don't you talk real quick, Wolf, about the market report and about your podcast on the air raid?
Yeah, absolutely. The market report, I mean, every summer we release two of them. We get the draft, the pre-draft, and then the August happens, the preseason, and then we release a second one. But we were talking, why not start getting these out earlier? I mean, a lot of people are doing best ball number one. These addicts are already drafting, and there's still tons of values to exploit this early on. So for those of you that are sick in the head and drafting already for your best ball leagues, we want to get you those values.
You know who you are.
Oh, of course, yeah. If you're listening to this, you probably are one of them. But you know what your values, your overprices, your penny stocks, the risers and fallers, that's what we break in these market reports. So we figured, why not start doing these monthly, and then maybe come the preseason, we'll start doing them weekly in that sense. So it's a little bit shorter than the summer ones, trimmed down, but all the information that you'd want from those is going to be in there. So one, again, for the best ball drafters, but two, I think it's a really good way to start really staking our claim. Yes, we had an article on Patrick Mahomes back in January before Alex Smith was even released, but if we had 4 straight months of market reports leading into the summer, we could really be like, look, we just said this guy's always a value. His value never changed through the preseason, all that, and he remains the best value in fantasy football. So it's one to just kind of flag plant for ourselves as well, and it's just a good holistic picture of the market. Is if our whole thing, Roto Street Journal's analyzing the fantasy stock market, it's important to know back in March who was way down, that's risen up the draft boards. Is it justified? Who's falling, and is that justified as well? Who stayed steady that should have probably risen? Things like that. Just we want to start painting that overall picture. We know you guys are as addicted to us if you're listening now, so give you some more content. If you want to get that, it's free, but it's going to be for our email subscribers only. We really want to start building that list and getting this Wolfpack mentality down so we can launch that this summer. You got to visit rotostreetjournal.com/market. We'll post on all the Instagrams, Twitters, all that, but rotostreetjournal.com/market. If you want to subscribe to our email list, if you already subscribed, great, you'll get it. But yeah, I also wanted to promo the Drew Hollingshead interview. This guy coaches under Mike Leach at Washington State right now, the godfather of the air raid offense. He's his quality control coach. He helps out with the QBs as well. And man, this interview is fantastic. Probably the most in-depth, and we've had some really great interviews.
We've had some in-depth. That's saying something if you're really saying that.
It's up in the top 3 at least of just like pure football X's and O's, especially if you don't know the air raid. And I knew it, and CJ did a great article on it. But just to hear a guy that's learning under legit godfather, he actually played under Kingsbury at Houston, was recruited by Kingsbury, was his head coach. So this guy just knows the ins and outs of this offense better than anybody else, other than maybe those two guys. So it was fantastic having him on. He broke down, how is David Johnson going to be used? Is Larry Fitzgerald still valuable? In addition to just painting a great overall picture of the air raid. So if you want to learn more, make sure you check that one out, episode 68 with Drew Hollingshead. What a great interview. And it kind of leads perfectly as a segue into our first breaking news segment.
All right. Well, we got some breaking news coming up, like you said, and I guess we'll jump right into that right now. Seriously, you should check out the podcast. It actually dropped today, the Air Raid podcast, and I've already listened to it. It's excellent. This one will probably drop tomorrow, the next day, just to kind of let that one breathe a little bit. But seriously, check it out. You won't be sorry. All right, we got some breaking news on a couple quarterback situations. Like I said, I'd love to be talking about Antonio Brown. I'd love to be talking about Le'Veon Bell. I mean, the breaking news with Antonio Brown, obviously, I mean, he has a blonde mustache. I mean, that's definitely and clearly like exhibiting some disturbing potential mental health issues. I mean, like, I definitely have a lot more questions about this. Because it's a guy that, by the way,
is he insane?
I've loved and supported like for his entire career, basically. I mean, Team Antonio Brown, but it's like now I'm actually at a point where I'm like, would I actually pay this guy this kind of money? Like, I'm sketched out by him.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I agree,
I
right?
just said we'd get to something else soon, but like I got to at least get your take on this. We haven't talked in 2 weeks. What do you think about what Antonio Brown's doing, man?
It is concerning, especially some of the comments lately where he's like, I don't even have to play football this year. I'm burning all these bridges so fast. This is a guy who I loved so much because he loved the game beyond belief. He was one of those guys that just worked his ass off to get where he is. He was a low round draft pick, but just had that work ethic that you couldn't, it was insatiable. And now it seems like the stardom's getting to his head, as it will anybody, but way over the top now with the blonde mustache, with comments that he'll sit out the entire year. I would be very nervous to be giving a significant investment to get this guy. I wonder what it'll take. They're saying they need a first rounder. There's some rumored teams interested. First, the Broncos were interested. Now they're not. You got the Redskins, the Titans, according to Schefter. But then you got a whole different list from Rappaport. So it really, who knows where it's going. Unfortunately, our guys, that we really wanted to see, the 49ers, have said they have had no discussions about Antonio Brown. That's where I really want to see him. Same with the Colts, too. They said that they've got no discussions going on, or the Browns, which is another one of our ideal landing spots. So really none of the teams I want to see him go to. On that list, though, maybe the Titans, because they got Mariota. He's probably the best quarterback, because the Redskins, we don't even know who'd be throwing him the rock. It's a mess, though. I'd be very nervous about investing some serious capital, both money-wise and draft-wise, to get this guy.
It's crazy. If you said to me, I don't know, I was going to say 12 months ago, but I mean, how about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, you said, okay, in March of 2019, we're saying this a little before the season, Le'Veon Bell will have not played football for an entire year, and Antonio Brown's mustache will be blonde, and he will not be coming back to the Steelers, and he's saying things that are making almost every team in the league be like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this guy has been the best receiver in football for years.
100%.
He's one of the best, probably 5 receivers ever already.
Yeah.
I mean, just stat-wise. So
exactly.
Anyway.
And that's where it gets tricky, right? Is you can kind of eat that risk if you think you're getting the Antonio Brown that will still work hard, that will still be that grinded out every single day guy. Maybe it was Big Ben was that much of a dick and he just couldn't handle that. But you have to obviously be a little bit skeptical.
If he was just like, I want to leave and hadn't really said anything else, I wouldn't have any reservations at all. But all this extracurricular stuff he's doing is giving me pause, which really surprised me because I really didn't think I would have pause with someone like him ever. I mean, I'm at a point now where if you said to me, and you know how I feel about ODB, if you said to me, would you rather have ODB or Antonio Brown? I'd rather have ODB.
Really? Yeah, divas. I mean, both divas, but yeah, it's tough to argue
but
that.
I mean, ODB is on a shitty team. Antonio, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, all right, let's get into breaking news on quarterback. I said we're not going to talk about Antonio Brown, and then I just went off for 3
Couldn't help it. It's important right now.
All right, according to Draft Insider Tony Pauline, Cardinals coach Cliff Kingsbury of the aforementioned podcast that we were just talking about has told people at the NFL Combine that Arizona selecting Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray is already a quote-unquote done deal.
Yeah, it's huge news because, one, they took a first-round quarterback last year in Josh Rosen.
Your boy Josh Rosen.
And I'm actually pretty pumped. That's my boy. I hate Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen.
I never liked Josh Rosen. But I'm excited to see this because especially after talking to Hollingshead on that podcast last time, he said the number one thing is accuracy and decision-making, which makes sense for a quarterback. It's pretty obvious. But especially for an air raid, you need your quarterback to be closer to that 65-70% accuracy as compared to 55-60. It's a huge gap in an air raid when you're chucking it 60 times a game almost. And Kyler Murray was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in all of football as compared to Josh Rosen, who had a 55% completion rate last year. I averaged 5.8 yards a pop. It was hideous. 11 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. I just like that a team isn't going to just sit to the vest and be like, yeah, we already invested in this guy. Let's wait and see if he can develop. If they know Kyler Murray is their guy, and remember, Kingsbury said back when he was coaching in college, obviously he didn't anticipate this was going to happen. He said back in college, though, if I get the number 1 overall pick, as they were scouting for Oklahoma, he said, if I had the number 1 overall pick as a franchise, I would take Kyler Murray, no doubt. And now he's sticking to his guns. Now that he actually has gotten the number 1 overall pick, it sounds like he's no doubt going with Kyler Murray, which as a Cardinals fan, I'd be way more excited about. There's nothing Rosen showed me. Yeah, I get he's young. He's got some arm talent, and they're going to be selling him for cheap now. I still would be so much more excited with what Kyler Murray could bring. I know he's short, but he measured in at 5'10", which
5'10" and an 8.
That's not bad. I mean, that's a lot better than I expected. And even then, doesn't matter. He's always been 5'10". That was his comments. Like, I've always been 5'10". It's not going to be any different. I know how to play at this height. I think he's going to be a beast.
Right,
I really am a fan of him.
He knows how to play. I mean, he's 5'10" and an 8. It's like, okay, he knows how to play.
He knows how to play. Drew Brees has succeeded at that height. I mean, I'm really a huge fan of Kyler Murray. And speaking of Antonio Brown, they are saying maybe the Cardinals are going to toss their hat into the ring for Antonio Brown as well. That'd be pretty damn exciting to suddenly go from this horrendous, disgusting offense to now being an air raid attack with an exciting, young, mobile quarterback that can scramble, can make all the throws. Then you get Antonio Brown, maybe the best receiver in the game right now, with David Johnson. And
David Johnson.
Line improvements. I mean, the Cardinals could flip that switch real fast. At minimum, it's suddenly intriguing to know what's going on with Arizona.
Man, they throw Kyler Murray, David Johnson, then you got Fitzgerald, of course, and Antonio Brown. I mean, that becomes kind of must-see TV.
I would be so in this new system that's going to take the league by storm potentially. The Cardinals went from like puke-worthy television, the worst type of offense to ever watch, to maybe the most exciting entering 2019
like the Browns,
if they have all that. Yeah, I'd be very intrigued. So looking forward to what Kingsbury, the air raid, and Kyler Murray are going to bring to 2019 television for sure.
Me too. All right, Les Bowen of the Philadelphia Inquirer reports the Jags are expected to sign free agent quarterback Nick Foles. I mean, before we get into the potential ramifications of Foles moving to the Jags, I mean, let's pour out a 40 for Sir Blake real quick.
Yeah, he's going down.
That's not okay.
I wonder if they just like ship him to London, have him sit there and like build up his legacy. They get their one London game in, he comes like storming in like a WWE fighter, like fireworks, crowd goes crazy.
Is that Blake Bortles music I hear?
He's out of the strip club with Alan Hearns coming down the aisle.
Hearns is watching.
Yes, he's watching it all. But yeah, this obviously means Bortles, Sir Blake is on the way out. And it's obviously, as a franchise, a much smarter move to go with Foles, who's been lighting it up in stretch run situations here for the Eagles, and just clearly is a better quarterback than Blake Bortles. So what does that do for the Jaguars?
Yeah,
well, they've already had that defense. You need somebody to rally around. Clearly, they got a lot of tough personalities there, but if they have somebody they believe in, maybe that defense gets back to the way they were playing just a couple seasons ago. They got John DeFilippo, which is why they're so linked. He was the Eagles quarterback coach when they made that historic Super Bowl run when Foles just balled out in a way that no one still can understand at all. So that he gets his guy, John DeFilippo, gets the quarterback he'd want. I think it's going to be great for a guy maybe like D.D. Westbrook, because John DeFilippo has been amazing for slot receivers. We saw Adam Thielen early on last season was the best receiver in fantasy through those first 13 weeks until DeFilippo got fired. We saw a breakout season for Aguilar just 2 years ago when DeFilippo was there, so he really schemes a lot of volume. I could see Westbrook taking that head on, and Foles being a guy that can actually deliver the rock. Westbrook's shooting up my draft board right now because of this move. I'm excited to have Foles there. And I think the Jaguars could be a little scary now, again, with a better quarterback. I don't love Foles. It's not like I think Foles is the greatest quarterback to ever play, but he's certainly much better than Blake Bortles.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but you can't argue even a little bit that he's not a step or maybe 2 steps up from Blake Bortles.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're going to get to our feature segment, Combine Coach Speak. Now, look, a lot of guys, they're breaking down the rookies that are coming out of the combine. That's kind of the obvious thing you're looking for when you're looking at the combine. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the angle we're going with this particular pod. Talk to us a little bit about what this is going to be as far as, what you've sifted through all these interviews and stuff. What are the coaches saying? Why is that significant? And then I'm going to throw you a few risers and a few fallers and let you riff on them a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. As I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, this is where I really think the meat is of the combine that gets overlooked by nearly everybody else, because it's flashy to watch these rookies and see how great they are, but really there might be 2 to 3 rookies that make a genuine fantasy impact this year, especially with such a weak running back class. Rookies are just always kind of like a flashy, exciting thing to talk about, but it distracts us from this stuff that could be genuinely meaningful for some names that we all know, that we've all seen play, that have established values that now are going to be rising and falling because of the comments. So yeah, I've sifted through, I think, 40 different interview transcripts. This was just psychotic. I sat here for like a Thursday and a Friday and just sifted through all of it, made a 40-page document, trimmed that down for this interview to, I think I've got it to, 15 nuggets that I really want to go through. We got 6 risers, 5 fallers, all backfield related, and then a few penny stocks that I saw some comments on that I really was intrigued by. So we've pared it down as much as we can, and we're going to just hit you with a ton of must-know stuff. If you didn't pay attention to these quotes and these comments from the coaches and GMs, this is what you need to know. So here's the quotes, here's the impact, here's what's happening on the rankings. We got a ton of names to cover here.
All right, let's start with the risers. We got 6 of them. We'll go real quick. Marlon Mack, is he about to be a featured back in an explosive attack?
From what Frank Reich and GM Chris Ballard are saying, both guys say absolutely he can be a featured back. That was the specific question. Will he be your featured back? They said absolutely. Pretty good. He had 1,200 yards through the playoffs, and that's with missing 4 games. We think Marlon Mack can play on all 3 downs and carry the load, said GM Chris Ballard. Frank Reich, who's typically a committee guy, says he handled it, he shouldered it, he got much better as the year went on. And Marlon hit his groove, and we were just a much better team with him in there. So I think absolutely Marlon Mack could be a featured back. He crushed it from week 6 on when he returned. He had an injury to begin the year. Gets back in week 6. He ranked 5th in the league in rushing attempts for a committee-based coach. That's a ton. 173 carries for 785 yards, was the 7th most rushing yards. If you include the playoffs, he gets up to 979, which is the 2nd most over that span. He had 10 touchdowns, 2nd in the league in touchdowns from week 6 on, which is the best stat. He's the goal line back, even though he's a little bit smaller, and he executed really well. He was the most first down rushes in the league at 57, and 8th in fantasy points from when he returned from week 6 on. So he was a genuine number 1 running back for your fantasy team. And also to note, just quickly, the Colts were 10-0 anytime Mack had 14 touches and 0-3 if he didn't have the ball 14 or more times. So to me, that seems like a formula you want to build on as a team. You get a back here now that's going to get 15, 20 touches each week in a very explosive offense for the Colts. He's up to above 30. He's number 29, 28 or so, a fringe second rounder, in my opinion, Marlon Mack, right alongside, I'd say, Sony Michel, Aaron Jones. I'd probably lean Marlon Mack now over those guys with this news.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, we kind of danced around him a lot of last year where we were like, Naeem Hines and I forget who else we were even talking about. And then it's like we were like, the coaches before the season were all saying it's Mack. And we kind of didn't believe them. But then turns out they were telling the truth.
They were.
All right, number 2, Robby Anderson, characterized as unique by Adam Gase. Is it possible his usage is about to seriously skyrocket? I mean, the guy basically last year and the year before, there were like stretches where he was one of the best guys in the NFL stat-wise. I mean, he had one of those to end last year, right?
Yeah, the fantasy playoffs, he was the number 2 wide receiver behind only DeAndre Hopkins. He rips off 20 catches, 312 yards, 3 TDs, and as predicted here on the Fantasy Fullback Dive, was a season winner. We kept tracking his usage, saying since he got back and Sam Darnold returned in week 14, peppers him with like 11 targets. And we're like, oh, look, you got to pay attention to this. He gets another 8 targets the next week. We say your fantasy championship, we're 15 spots higher on Robby Anderson, and he goes and wins you a title with like 150 yards and a TD. Is ridiculous. We called it the cum cave in my basement because we all had started Robby Anderson. He was blowing up for all of us. So it was unbelievable the run this guy went on to close out the season. Number 2 again, behind only DeAndre Hopkins. And it sounds like there's a reason that could continue. Again, you got that rapport. We got a guy that could track the deep ball as well as any. And Adam Gase said, this is the guy that surprised me the most as I've been breaking down film on my new team. I'm so impressed with his speed. It's unique. You don't see guys that have the way he tracks the ball down the field. I've never seen a player that does it as smooth as he just plucks it out of the air naturally at the speed he's running. It's insane. He's never seen it before. Now he says, we're going to try to keep thinking of ways to get him the ball, ways to create variety in his routes, and instead of just using him on 1 or 2 things, which is what he's been kind of labeled, that one-trick pony, he's saying maybe we can free him up for 5, 6, 7 different types of routes. He's a threat on multiple levels, whether it's underneath, intermediate, or down the field. So to me, that sounds like a target hog number 1 wide receiver that Adam Gase is envisioning for Robby Anderson. We don't know if they'll trade for somebody or draft somebody to threaten him, but we saw that chemistry. We know that he can make those ridiculous stretch runs where he's the number 2 receiver for the playoffs. The year before, he was the number 2 receiver for a 6-7 week span when him and McGuire were just dominating. So we've seen it, but then it always becomes inconsistent and he kind of disappears and becomes that one-trick pony. If this usage is going to become that much higher and this much more varied, I really think Robby Anderson could just have a consistent regular season. He's number 60 right now on my big board. My wide receiver 26, and that seems almost a low, even though I'm about 20 spots higher than the ECR for that number 60 overall.
All right. Gus Edwards is the Ravens' new number one running back, potentially. I mean, Alex Collins out all of a sudden.
Yep.
Now the bus is all of a sudden
charges.
Pulling into the garage as the number one option. Maybe, just maybe. That's what John Harbaugh is saying. What do you think?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's there to last for the full time, but yeah, Harbaugh says our number one running back. I expect him to build on that. He's a rookie in his second year that got much better. 240-pound guy that brings it every single snap. You got to love that. So it sounds like he does really like him. So who knows? What I really liked about his quote, though, was when he said he fits well with the running game we're involved with. That's because Greg Roman took over the offense. That's when we saw that Lamar Jackson transition. They just became this very power run heavy focused team, and that's where Edwards started to thrive. He didn't take the reins until week 10, but then he never looked back. He was actually the RB14 from week 10 on when he became the starter. But he's right now ranked as the 39th best running back. I get it. Maybe they're going to make a move. Maybe they've been linked to Ingram, and even Le'Veon Bell's been rumored to potentially go there.
Yeah.
But this happens every offseason. Chris Carson's going to get stolen from, and then he ends up being the RB15 in the year. Or D'Angelo Williams a couple of years ago when Jonathan Stewart came in was the number one running back in fantasy. There's always these guys that are going to surefire lose their jobs, and then they don't. And then they end up being extremely valuable picks, especially if you're doing best ball right now. Some of the most valuable picks are those ones that everyone expects them to lose their jobs. They're going at 150 or so overall, and then they're still the starter, and they shoot up come summertime, like 7 or 8 rounds. But if you're drafting this early, you could get a real steal in Gus Edwards if they don't replace him.
All right, Dante Pettis had a strong finish to 2018. What Kyle Shanahan have to say about that? Is he thinking we're building on this? Is the guy just going to kind of settle in, or is he thinking maybe bigger and better things?
I think he's singing great things because he said that was our best receiver down the stretch, and we saw that he can play all three positions. And in the Shanahan offense, when he finds a guy he likes to move around and put at all three positions, that becomes that target hog, that alpha X. And Pettis could potentially be that. I mean, he really did finish the year as a number one wide receiver from weeks after the week 11 bye, where they were saying he was banged up all year. He wasn't really fully healthy. And he finally comes in, gets to full health come week 12, 13, 14, 15. He was a monster. 77 yards and a TD, 129 yards, 2 TDs, 49 yards and a TD, 83 yards. Just all double-digit games. Was the number 5 receiver from that 4-week stretch, and then he gets hurt again. So that's obviously the concern here with Pettis is he wasn't healthy to begin the year, and then he got hurt to end the year. So can he actually stay healthy and do a full season of this? Who knows? But he was averaging 16.5 points per game over that span, and that was with Nick Mullins throwing him the rock. Imagine what he could do when you get Jimmy Garoppolo back there, a real legitimate quarterback. I'd be pretty excited what Dante Pettis can do, and he's going after round 7, 8, so a lot of upside for a guy that Kyle Shanahan's labeling in every down, like all 3 wide receiver positions. A lot of upside there for Dante Pettis at his price.
All right, let's talk about Damien Williams, who's somebody that we've talked about before. We were saying, like, is he gonna be the guy? And we were both like, yeah, why not? I mean, when he was the guy, he was really, really good. And so, I mean, you putting out there it's his job to lose. That's kind of how I feel like it should be. You feel the same way?
I feel the same way, and GM Brett Veach, the guy who's going to make the decisions for the backfield and who they draft, said the same thing. It's his job to lose. He was special. He just needed the opportunity, and when it presented itself, he ran with it. He can run, he can catch, he can block, he does everything really well. I would certainly say this offseason, it's Damien's job to lose. That's huge news because when Damien had the job, he was unstoppable. He scored 10 TDs in 6 weeks, which is just crazy. I get it. It's a byproduct of an explosive offense, but that's still going to be very much in place. He scored 132.6 PPR points in 6 weeks. That's 22.1 points per game. For perspective, that would have been 353 points on the season, and Todd Gurley led the league with 342. So this guy's pace was better than anybody else in the NFL when he was the actual starter. Andy Reid's always preferred a workhorse that he can throw to, that he can disguise coverage, all that stuff. Andy Reid's always done that, so the volume will be there if he's the lead guy. The offense obviously can't be any better than what the Chiefs are. Damien Williams is right now going at pick 54 or so in best ball because I think everyone thinks he's going to get this job taken from him. I have him ranked at 14 overall, so I'm 40 spots higher than the experts, and if he is again confirmed to be that
where do the experts have him?
He's like 50-ish right now in the rankings.
What?
I think everyone assumes he's going to lose this job and not be the guy, but these comments suggest otherwise. His play, I mean, he looked really good while he was out there. He fits exactly what this team needs, so why spend that running back when you have so many defensive needs? It's going to be his job, and he's going to thrive. So if you can get him at pick 50 in best ball right now, you better take advantage of that. Yeah, 54. 54.
I don't even know what to say about that. Like,
Isn't that crazy?
When you said 14, and I hadn't looked at the where his ranking was and stuff. I literally was about to say you might have him a little low.
Yeah, right. He should be maybe a first rounder at this point, right? 14 overall.
Yeah. Right, no, I was thinking maybe 12.
Right. Exactly.
54. What?
I know. It's insanity. Yeah.
Unless there's something going on behind the scenes that we just don't know about, which is of course possible, but just based on the information that's in front of us, come on, man, 54. That's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, the only reason I don't see him being a fringe first rounder is if they go and sign Ingram or they bring in Le'Veon Bell, a guy that would take over that job for him. But I expect him. They'll probably draft a running back in 3 or 4 round then. And it's going to be Williams' job to lose, and I don't think he's going to lose it because of how well. I mean, this was the playoffs. They leaned heavily on this guy, and he didn't do anything but thrive for him. Why would you go away from him?
Okay, I agree with you. They shouldn't go away. I mean, there's other issues they should be addressing. To me, this is not a bleeding limb right now for them. Let's say they brought in someone like Le'Veon Bell, who's obviously an upgrade from just about anybody. That's fine. I would rather have Damien Williams than Mark Ingram.
Yeah, the way he played, it'd be tough to argue. And Mark Ingram's 30 years old. There's no real upside to signing that guy to a huge contract, especially when you got someone who's already thrived for you on the brightest of stages and does everything Andy Reid asks of his running back. I don't see a way that Damien Williams isn't their starting running back, and the value you can get on him if you're drafting right now is absolutely insane.
All right, last riser. David Johnson.
Yeah.
Potential keeper for the Truth's hometown league. Potential. Back to 2016 workhorse ways under Cliff Kingsbury. What do you think? I'm following this closely. I have to make the ultimate decision at sometime in the next 6 months or so between Nick Chubb, whose stock has plummeted, David Johnson, and Sony Michel. So,
oh man, right now, if the gun's to my head, it's going to be David Johnson, especially with these recent comments from Cliff. And after listening to Hollingshead's interview, I really like what David Johnson's upside's looking like for 2018. Kingsbury himself comes out and he says it's exciting for us. He's a couple years removed from a monster season. He's referring to a 2,100 total yard, 20 TD season with 80 catches. So yes, Cliff, that was a ridiculous season. So I'm glad you're aware. And what Cliff says is he's got the talent to get back to that level. We want him back there. We're going to make him a pivotal part of our offense. He's got the mental makeup and talent to do that. So Kingsbury's already coming out and saying this is going to be our centerpiece. And at first I was like, all right, it's an air raid offense. The name alone is it just doesn't sound like there's a place for a running back in there. But after talking with Hollingshead as well, you hear these comments from Cliff. Hollingshead talks so much about whether it's in the running game, you're spreading the defense out so wide that the running lanes, the gaps are much more open for the running back in the run game. But then we pepper them with targets. You got all these verticals, the 4 verts and the meshes and all these things going on down the field that the underneath stuff's so open for running backs that he expects David Johnson to get right back to that 80 to 90 catch range, as do I. So this could be one of those, Todd Gurley style resurgences. After a couple down years, he gets the right coach to really unlock his upside. I think that could be Kingsbury, especially with Kyler Murray also coming in there. Maybe Antonio Brown. This offense just gets a little more explosive. A little more. 1,000 times more explosive if you got Kyler Murray and Antonio Brown coming in there too. I love everything about it, and I really think this offense is going to turn it around, and Johnson's going to be the focal point. So he's up to 13 on my running back rankings, right there at the fringe first rounder. And to me, those other guys you listed are nice, fringe second rounders or so. I think Johnson's a tier above them. The only other guy, I know you have Hopkins. I'm going to take Hopkins over any of them, but Johnson would be the next one up on that list that you gave me.
I agree. Right now, I like Sony Michel a lot, though, too.
I love Sony, but you got to be nervous, right, about the Patriots.
Yeah, of course I'm nervous about it. Look, I want to keep David Johnson. I really do. I just
He's
need
the surest volume bet.
Somebody to push me in the right direction. Look,
I'm pushing you.
In a month ago when I put this out there, you almost mocked that. You were like, David Johnson. I don't even love the talent. I don't even think you should keep. And things change fast. Those 3 guys that I'm trying to decide between have probably all been in. Every one of those guys has been in the 1, 2, 3 slot. In the last month, and we haven't played football in months.
I really think the latest I've learned, because I didn't know a ton about the air raid. Now that I've learned more and more and how integral a good running back that can catch the ball can be to that attack, to me it's almost a no-brainer at this point. I do want to see how he's looking and how it's developing. Obviously, you got some time to see all that. But if you were deciding today, David Johnson's taken a huge... He was, like you said, he was in that 20-ish range with Sony Michel and them just a couple weeks ago. But after that interview and learning more and more, and then hearing Kingsbury come out and say, we want to get him back to that 2,000 total yard level, I'm back and I'm all in on David Johnson again.
All right, let's talk about a few fallers real quick. Todd Gurley, he who has been diagnosed with arthritis in his knee, that is sketchy. Is his workload about to come down?
It sounds like it. I mean, both McVay, both GM Les Snead had a variety of comments that suggested they're going to be bringing in somebody else, whether it's C.J. Anderson returning or someone new. They're calling it kind of like a Batman and Robin situation and all these weird little keywords that, of course, suggests it's going to be a committee. And that makes sense, especially if he's got arthritis in the knee and he's starting to see like stem cell therapy and all these interesting reports coming out. We saw him kind of crumble there towards the stretch run. And a lot of their comments are, how do we preserve this guy both for a full season, for his long-term career? It's about a marathon, not a sprint mentality, and we need to be more cognizant of that, is the general premise of everything they're saying. So yeah, you got to expect his touches to go down. I still wouldn't overreact. I mean, let's say it drops from him being like the 90% guy to 65%, and there's a guy getting 35% or so of the snaps. In this offense, I still think, and then with his talent and with that line and everything else around him, he would still be a top 5 pick in my opinion if he's getting 65% of the backfield volume. I mean, you're looking at guys like Kamara and McCaffrey probably jumping him now in my big board. But I still, if his owner's freaking out in Dynasty or sell, and this stigma of Gurley being just useless starts to come out there, or this mega risk that you need to avoid, this guy's a horse. This guy's a beast. Everybody's got like arthritis in their knees at this point of their NFL careers. Let's be honest. Like I read a report from a doctor that was like, yeah, half these guys have arthritis in the knees. We just
a medical doctor?
Yeah, exactly. He wrote like a post about it. One of those Twitter doctors. I don't know if it's actually real. Who knows all those guys? But I take what I can find. And they're just saying it's going to be overblown. And I think that's the case. And I think right now, if somebody's panicking on Todd Gurley, go ahead and try to buy him, because I still believe in the guy. He's still a top 5 fantasy talent. He's been the number 1 guy back-to-back years in fantasy. Even with 65% of the volume, he's still going to score about 300 fantasy points and be a monster. So capitalize right now. If people are trying to sell him, I'll buy him all day.
James Conner facing a committee risk with Jalen Samuels in Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on that? It's kind of cringeworthy.
That one makes me a little more nervous, because whereas Gurley is an elite talent, a guy that's going to be locked into 20-ish touches a game just because of how good he is, even if it drops a little bit, Conner isn't as elite as these other guys. Yeah, he played really hard and he runs the ball aggressively and he's a good pass catcher, but he's nothing special. I mean, Jalen Samuels
he's not
came
on the
in
same level as a lot of these guys. Though.
No, because I mean, this is what we've seen with the Steelers' backfield. It's why Le'Veon Bell might have cost himself some serious dough. Is James Conner comes in and he kind of replaces Le'Veon Bell to a pretty adequate level. We saw D'Angelo Williams have monster games, and then Jalen Samuels himself comes in, has 160 yards against the Patriots. I mean, it's the system. They loved workhorses. They feed their guys a lot, and now they're kind of hinting at, yeah, maybe we go back to a committee more to keep our guys healthy, to split that load up against the GM. Kevin Colbert came out and said they're very encouraged by what Jalen did at the end of the year there. The two of them together complement each other very well, so we hope to continue that and to grow that. So that to me suggests a committee. So when the talent's not as great, that's something where Samuels could someday take over. It could be a swing, because I really don't think there's much of a gap between Conner and Samuels talent-wise. I don't think either are particularly special. So if this gets closer to a 60-40, 50-50 split, suddenly Conner, who was so value-dependent, so volume-dependent, and so, obviously, again, the volume in such a great offense made him valuable. But if he's not getting those 25 touches a week, and it's more of a 18-ish type of thing, I don't love his situation there. So he falls out of the first round for me. I'd rather have, I think, David Johnson at this point. I definitely would rather have Joe Mixon, who's locked into serious volume and an explosive attack. I'd take all those tier 1 receivers, the Hopkins, the Devontae Adams, the Julio Joneses, probably even Antonio Brown, depending where he lands, above Connor at this point. He took a decent hit, probably 6, 7, 8 spots from number 7 all the way down to 14, 15 range for me. I'm very nervous about him. I'm labeling him already the early bust of 2019.
Oh, and be ready for the fans next year, complaining about Jalen Samuels' tight end designation on Yahoo. So you can always count on him as a potential pickup.
God, yeah.
All right, number 3, Aaron Jones, potentially doomed for committee again in 2019. What?
I know.
Fuck? Are you fucking kidding me?
I know. It's just.
Don't they listen to this podcast?
It's infuriating. It's fucking awful. I don't get it. I don't get how there could ever be consideration for a committee when you got such a enormous talent gap between Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. But here we are. And what I'm going to say is, yes, it hurts him. I know, it sucks. It does hurt him. But it also, to me, is one of those situations where Matt LaFleur is so ground dependent. Its offense is marrying the run and pass game, so they have to establish such a big presence on the ground that this is going to be the most run-heavy attack the Packers have rolled out in recent memory. Ever since Mike McCarthy got there, they've been the pass happiest team for year in and year out. So the ground pie is growing a ton. So even if it becomes a little bit more shared in that ground pie and it remains a committee, I think there's going to be enough overall volume increase that it's not going to kill Aaron Jones. It would have been nice to see, Aaron Jones is our main guy and then we're going to have Jamal Williams working behind him. They didn't say anything like that. So until we have that confirmation, it's going to be a little bit sketchier to me. And yes, his ceiling is now officially capped because we know it will be shared, but Jones isn't the biggest guy. He's been hurt a couple of years in a row, so this doesn't ultimately kill him, especially if it preserves him. What I really hope is he's the guy that gets the 15 plus touches a week. Matt LaFleur's always given a running back at 87% of his games 15 plus touches. I just really hope it's predictable and it's clearly Jones each week, because then he's still going to thrive and he's still going to be a beast. He only needs 15 or so touches to really be a monster. Remember, we've had this stat on here a bunch. When he's gotten 15 or more touches, his pace, his 16-game pace. So that's happened 8 times. If you extrapolate those stats, becomes 1,766 total yards and 18 touchdowns with 50 or so receptions to go with it. So if he gets 15-ish or so touches, this is going to be fine. It's going to be water under the bridge. It won't matter. But I do need to know that Jones is the main guy before Jamal Williams. He's going to be like the 60 to the 40 of this committee. And then I'll be ready to go back all in. This does make me a little bit more nervous. It is a little bit annoying. But I'm not jumping ship and avoiding Aaron Jones quite yet.
Not avoiding him, but come on, man. That's
discouraging.
That's discouraging.
It's discouraging. I get it.
And there's a real theme to these fallers, by the way, because now I'm looking at number 4. Chris Carson stuck in a 1-2 punch backfield. Isn't that the same thing as a Batman Robin or a committee or a Thunder and Lightning or any of that dumb shit that people say? It's this is all happening. These are workhorse potential guys. Selfishly guys that could carry a fantasy backfield. We're hey, instead of just telling you, hey guys, we're going to dick you around, we're going to dress it up with a cool name. Hey, this is going to be a 1-2 punch backfield. In other words, we're going to fuck you completely.
I know, it sucks.
Carson stuck in a 1-2 punch, yes?
It sucks. I mean, I love the emotion behind there too, getting fired up. You read 5,
and it's getting hard to figure out who the hell you're supposed to draft in a backfield now.
I know. The committee sucks, especially when you see Carson thrive as a workhorse. He was an absolute monster last year, 600-yard games, nearly 1,200 rushing yards, 9 TDs, was the number 4 running back for fantasy playoffs. This guy was a workhorse and a monster with that volume. So, yeah, it is annoying. This one's similar to the Packers one, where it's such a great sized ground pie that even if it is distributed to 2 guys, Carson would still have some value. I don't crush he's going to fall 6-7 spots or so on the big board, kind of taken away from the Sony Michel and Marlon Mack tier, and now more so with the Carry-On Johnsons and the Jerick McKinnons and the Fournettes, the bigger question mark guys. Because, I mean, the one thing I hated about this comment was he says a 1-2 punch, and I don't know who's 1 and who's 2. It doesn't matter to me. I don't like that. I would have loved to see him be like, yeah, Carson was a monster. He's going to be our main guy, and we're going to ride him. But he doesn't even come out and say that, which is kind of frustrating because they do have your first-round trade-up draft capital in Rashad Penny. He did look pretty explosive in limited touches last year, and they're saying they want to get him rolling more. So that is frustrating. It is annoying. I still think Carson remains the guy. He's still about 40 or so on my list. Penny becomes an interesting penny stock. To not use his name or anything like that as convenient. But yeah, Penny becomes an interesting penny stock in the wake of this. It just goes from, a surefire high-end RB2, low-end RB1 to now a mid-range guy that has some serious warts and question marks in Chris Carson, and I don't love it.
Hey, you want to go along with the same theme here? Kerryon Johnson, committee trapped once again.
Awful.
Yeah, I mean, why even say anything? Awful.
It sucks.
Awful.
I mean, I'm not shocked.
They bring in Amir Abdullah back?
Yeah, right. Unbelievable. I'm not shocked because Patricia and Bob Quinn, they come from the Patriots way of there's always a system and there's always balance and there's always got to be a spread. Kerryon's so much better than anyone else they had. They started to get away from the committee by the end of last year, and it was nice to see. And I would have loved to see some comments like, yeah, Kerryon started to thrive. We want to give him more volume. But no, they're all saying, we hope he can do what he did last year inside a committee. GM Bob Quinn saying, I never like to say bell cow, which is my favorite word in the world. So fuck you, Bob Quinn.
I know,
bell cows
seriously.
are the best. Like, you don't like the word bell cow? You're not a human. You don't have a soul.
Fucking Matt Patricia's like, I'm a rocket scientist, right?
Yeah, fuck you. You can't even figure out how to use a running back the right way. He's going to say, passing game guy, Theo Riddick, and then Zach Zenner. Zach Zenner. Fucking, you're bringing up Zach Zenner. Go fuck yourself. He's disgusting.
Why am I talking about this.
Yeah.
This is making me, I'm glad the podcast's almost over because I'm starting to get fired up in an unpleasant way.
Yeah, I'm going to have an aneurysm on the podcast. I'm 30.
Well, I haven't done this in 2 weeks. I'm not in podcast shape, and now you're just saying things that are just making me really
I knew
angry.
This committee run would really put you through the gauntlet here. I told you I was going to get you fired up for the podcast, and here you go.
Some of these are so stupid. They just it makes me so angry. I get the girly thing. I get it. I mean, if he has arthritis in his knee or whatever, trying to not run the guy into the ground. I get it. But some of these are just ridiculous. It just reminds me of what Derrick Henry went through for years when you were all in on Derrick Henry multiple times. They're like, you know what? We're going to platoon Derrick Henry with jackass. No, anyway.
Right,
go ahead.
Exactly.
I digress.
It's just the overall case in point is there's a lot of guys that could have been legitimate RB1s. They have the talent. They have the 3-down skill set. And it is frustrating to see that the coaches aren't going to unleash them in the way they can. And there's so much value. It's not that we're just fantasy owners that want all these RB1s, which of course we are and of course we do.
Yeah,
but as an offense, it gives you such an advantage to be able to disguise your looks and you don't know if they're running or passing because they have the same guy in and you can throw to them. As a fantasy owner, I hate the committee because it kills value. And I think there is a lot of value to having that one kind of workhorse guy. That's just my style. I love bell cows. So it is annoying to see some of these guys that could be monsters in Carson and Connor and Kerryon to know they're going to have a thorn in their side all year is very frustrating for sure. And it makes me think early on, you got to get those work. We talk about building the stable.
It makes the few that are there more and more valuable.
Exactly. So, it looked like that stable was about to grow and add some real key ponies to that backfield stable, but it seems like that list is going to remain an elite few. So you got to make sure you get those guys in round 1 if you can.
All right, let's do penny stocks. Let's do them kind of rapid fire.
Yeah,
we got 5 of them.
I'll
let's
go
start
fast.
Chris Herndon, set up for a major role under Adam Gase? Question mark.
Yeah, he called him a unicorn because he's an every down player. He can block really well. He can catch the ball really well. And rookie tight ends usually suck. And this guy was pretty damn solid all year. So I think a nice big step forward in year 2 could be in the cards for Chris Herndon. And we've seen Adam Gase with Julius Thomas a few years ago back in Denver. Knows how to really use those guys and their big bodies in the red zone. And Herndon's got that athleticism, that vertical to go up and get it. I think he's got some real 8 to 10 touchdown upside next year.
Bruce Arians on Peyton Barber in Tampa Bay, quote, the kind of guy I like to build around, unquote. We've been fooled by Peyton Barber before.
We have, and Bruce Arians, if this guy somehow enters the season as Bruce Arians' guy, he's going to be a 5th, 6th rounder in my opinion. So that's one of those ones in best ball, take that, he's going to pick 120, 130. This is kind of like that Gus Edwards style. We don't expect him to be the starter, but if he is, he's going to be really fucking valuable. So take a stab on him. It's going to cost you a pick 120 or so right now, because maybe Arians does end up building around him and he does does a nice job. But ultimately, there's so many Le'Veon Bell and Mark Ingram linkings going there to Tampa Bay. I see no way Barber's the guy, but if Arians loves him and they don't make any moves, then this could be some real upside there.
How is wide receiver Christian Kirk going to fit into this offense?
And Cliff Kingsbury says he's dynamic. He's a guy who can play inside, outside. When the ball's in his hands, he's really explosive. Those are all the staples of the air raid, moving your guys around, using them down the field and in running after the catch situations. So Christian Kirk, our guy Hollingshead, said he really expects this guy to take a massive sophomore leap forward, and I'm agreeing, especially when Kingsbury's recognizing the talent he has in front of him.
Elijah McGuire, the forgotten beast who could thrive. Accurate assessment?
Probably not, but I mean, he was a monster down the stretch, a top 7 fantasy running back for the fantasy playoffs because he just got so much volume. Could it be that situation yet again, like Barber, like Gus Edwards, where we think he's going to lose his job to a Le'Veon Bell, a Tevin Coleman, and then McGuire just ends up being the best bet. He's the only one that they keep. And you've got this guy going after pick 100 that ends up being a starting running back with some talent and some volume. That could be McGuire. One of these guys that's going to happen to. That's why I kind of just want to emphasize it. Like, most of these guys are going to have their jobs taken. But at least one of McGuire, Barber, Gus Edwards is going to pan out for one of them. And they all go after pick 100. So take them all and figure out which one it is.
You're like, look, I got to be honest with you guys. I want to be clear about this. Most of these men will be begging for change on the street by September.
Yeah,
I just want to be totally transparent about how I'm assessing this. Last but not least, or maybe last but least, Ito Smith set for a major pass game role in the explosive Falcons attack. Falcons who sucked donkeys last year. Go ahead.
They did, but he's supposed to see a significant increase in his offensive looks. We know Devonta Freeman coming off an injury-ridden year, and he's been a pretty heavily worked guy. So now you got this handcuff situation and a standalone role for Ito Smith, kind of playing that Tevin Coleman role with him heading out. It's an explosive offense, so even if their running backs haven't been much these last couple of years, Ito Smith could emerge. He's going after pick 150 right now, just a guy to make sure you have circled on your penny stock sheet.
All right, that's going to wrap up episode number 69. Wolf, you got any social media you want to pump up before we take off? Like I said, I'm going to drop this thing in a couple days. I'm not going to drop it tonight.
Yeah, and then last 2 penny stocks, Jalen Samuels and Joe.
Oh, you got more?
No, just to mention, I kind of had like a quick note that
because
Connor and Jones are falling, people have to rise in that light. And I do think Jalen Samuel and Jamal Williams are getting ridiculously overlooked right now in best ball drafts because either one of them could emerge as the starter at some point in the season. And it sounds like they're going to have standalone roles as is anyway. So very impressive, like handcuff value plus that standalone, that handcuff with benefits we talk about, right? So both those guys, I think, make great handcuff with benefits. So I wanted to throw them out there. But yes, if you like what you heard.
Plus, you can put Jalen Samuels in as a tight end.
Those comments are the fucking worst. Those little fucking vulture nerd like me, shut the fuck up. But and thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your support.
Right. Seriously, your opinions are valid.
Yes, kind of. But this is the Fantasy Fullback Dive, and we appreciate you tuning in. We're paving that path to your 2019 titles. The work starts now. Not a lot of people are going to know these transcripts and read these interviews and know these nuggets. So if you like what you heard, we're always going to be bringing this kind of game-changing, different perspectives than you're used to in the fantasy industry. Subscribe, review us, let us know how we're doing. We'd really appreciate it. It would mean the world to us if you take the time and do that. And if you want to follow us on all our socials, Roto Street Journal on everything, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Roto ST Journal on Twitter. Me personally, you can find at Roto Street Wolf. Obviously, I love talking this stuff. Clearly, I'm reading 70 pages of interview transcripts to find little nuggets like these. I love this beyond life, so hit me up at any time. I would love to chat with you guys and let us know what we're doing. Let us know what we can do for you in the offseason to help you get that 2019 title.
All right, my name's Nat the Truth Jones.
And I'm the Wolf. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take it easy, guys.
Later. That was good.
Tons of stuff, dude. Tons of content. I like how pissed off you got as we were going.
Well, it got to me after like the third one. I was just like, "What the hell is going on here?" Chris Carson, Kerryon Johnson, like what? Anyway, all right. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna rattle this thing off like in a day or two, but we'll be in touch. If you want to go again Wednesday, let me know.
Sounds good. What do we got on that sweatshirt? Jones family? Is that
it's from my
custom made?
Okay.
My
advisory from like 5 years ago.
Nice. All right, man. Thanks for recording. Take it easy, brother.
See ya.